First question, Bernard Dunne. Are you all right? Are you all right? Now, Bernard, you are a true champion, but this is a tough moment.
There's so many people, and you know. It's a tough time at the moment here for the Irish people, and especially for the Irish boxing people, you know, with the passing of Darren, and just the Irish people in general. And I wanted so badly, you know, this week to kind of, you know, lift the mood and, you know, make, you know, just give people a bit of joy. And
well, there is,
you know, it's you know, I knew what to expect from Poonsawat. You know, I knew he's going to be aggressive early, and you know, it's just I got lured into fighting him, and I shouldn't have, and it's my own stupid fault, to be honest. And you know, we've been down before, you know, and we've come back and won a world title. You know, it's going to take me a long time to get over this, but I will get over it, and I will come back, guys.
If I can verbalise what the people of Ireland, and indeed the 9,000 people here in the O2 are saying, is we think you are a world champion, Bernard Dunne, and we know, first of all, we've been on an incredible journey, but we know you're going to bounce back.
You know, it's, you know, I have no complaints. Everything went right for this fight. You know, I was in great condition. You know, physically I was ready. You know, everybody's looked after me so well this week. You know, my coaches, you know, my family, you know, even the people in the hotel have put up my little intricacies this week. And you know, I just, oh God, you know, it's hard to explain what I'm actually feeling right now. You know, I'm probably still feeling the effects of the first left hook that I got hit with, to be honest. You know, just so many people have sacrificed to get me to where I am. You know, my wife, my family, Brian, Harry, you know, Hunky Dory's got the fight here. Martin Donnelly is, you know, second to none. And use people, you know. I don't know what to say just that's going to make it feel better, but it's...
Well, all I can say again is we think you're the best, Bernard Dunne. We really do.
Okay, well, a very emotional Bernard Dunne, and we're all a bit stunned. A great reaction here in the O2 to his interview there with Marty. But Mick, well, I suppose stunned is the word, huh? And Bernard is just as stunned as the rest of us.
Well, it brings us back, you know, we think back to the Kiko Martinez affair, you know, and here we got pretty much similar tonight. But I have to say that Bernard is very gracious in defeat tonight, as he was then. And he doesn't have to apologise to the Irish people. He doesn't have to apologise to Irish boxing folk. You know, he can be very proud of what he's done, and he's, I suppose you could say, he's almost single-handedly brought professional boxing to a very, very high level here, along with the likes of Andy Lee, Matthew Macklin, and others. But he can be very proud of his achievements, and as far as I'm concerned, he will always be remembered as one of the really good Irish fighters.
No, but it's not gone yet, I know, but it is a crushing defeat. But this guy, Poonsawat, Jim, was everything we were told. I know people, and we articulated it beforehand, had sort of thrown some doubts over how good he was because of some of the fighters that he had met, but he's the real deal.
He was the real deal, and the difference between this defeat and the defeat to Kiko Martinez was never in Bernard Dunne's class. No. Never. He got lucky, he caught Bernard Dunne cold. This fella is a terrific boxer, is a terrific puncher. You know, and I mean, they talk about his opponents, his weaker opponents, but I mean, every single fighter has weak opponents to start them off, to build them up. You know, they don't like to admit it, but I mean, it's a stage. they fight fighters on the bottom of the ladder starting off, and if opponents get better as you go on. But at Bernard Dunne's level now, world champion, he has to take on the best in the world. That was the number one, the fella that everyone else didn't want to fight.
Avoided.
And that is the reason why Bernard Dunne, as you could see in the first 2 rounds, had far superior skills, was able to outbox him. But you know, the clincher for him was your man had dynamite in his hands, and he nailed Bernard on the chin. And no matter how much training or strength and conditioning you do, it can help you recover, but it cannot make you take a punch any better than you can take it. You can't put muscles on your chin, and that's what we say in the boxing world. And you know, do all the training you like, but if you can't take the shot and you haven't got the resistance to it, you know, you're going to crumble when that shot does hit you.
And Andy, he seemed to have done everything right, as Jim was saying, in the first 2 rounds. He was getting in there, hitting 1, 2, and then moving away. Why did he get drawn into it in round 3, or was there nothing he could do?
The tire was coming on, and Bernard didn't look tired that he had to, you know, slow down and stand in front of him. He just kind of got dragged in. The crowd were cheering, and the old thing, you know, he said he got dragged into a fight with him. But he started off well, and the jab, I said, when I saw the first round, I said, all he has to do is jab this guy, and it'll be an easy night. But he just got sucked in. It's hard. It's easy for me to sit here and say, should have stayed outside, but it's so hard when you're in there. That Poonsawat was putting on terrible pressure, slipping and moving, coming in with his feet, and Bernard, couldn't do nothing to resist him.
Yeah. Bernard is a terrific boxer. I mean, he's great skills. He's much better skills as a boxer than Poonsawat. But what happens sometimes is, as it happens to lots of fighters, it's happened to Andy, it's happened to me, I'm sure it happened to Mickey in his amateur games, you get drawn in, you do well for a couple of rounds, and you suddenly say, I'll take his digs here, and you get lulled, little false
So do you reckon that he could, if he had kept going and started as the way you have described in the way he did start, that he could have gone the distance with this guy? We can't say if he's going to beat him, we'll never know.
That was the way that he was only going to beat Poonsawat, was with his boxing skills. He could never mix it with Poonsawat.
So and is it just down to the crowd that he got drawn into this?
Look, Darryl, you go out with a plan, and you between your coaches, your management, you have a plan. But your opponent has a plan too, and Poonsawat's plan was to put pressure. We mentioned this beforehand. That's the type of fighter he is. He sets a relentless pace. He goes as well in the 12th as he would in the 1st or 2nd. Pressure all the time. Now, sooner or later, you have to stand and fight. You don't get any choice. It wasn't Bernard's choice to stand and fight, but often you have no choice. It's like in football or hurling, teams have plans and they have to change, they have to be able to adapt. The pressure was on Bernard. We were afraid, and I said it to Jim during the first round, I'm afraid here, Jim, I'm really afraid. I could see the power that this young guy had, and once he started landing the punches, he got so cocky, he got so confident, there was always a danger. People criticised me only yesterday for saying that, look, if this thing gets into a war in the trenches, there would only be one winner, and it wouldn't be Bernard Dunne. People were getting on, what's Mick Dowling talking about? That is what happened. Poonsawat dragged them into the trenches, started the war. Bernard had no choice. He didn't want to do it. He had no choice but to try and fight the fight that was in front of him.
And that's just because Poonsawat had him under so much pressure.
And as well, being a fighter, there's a natural tendency that you want to fight. And when he hits you a few digs, stupidity sometimes comes into it, or male bravado or whatever, but you stand, you shouldn't. I mean, Bernard knew for weeks training he was going to box this fella, and of course once the few digs get thrown, you throw caution to the wind, and he said himself he didn't follow his game plan, and he stood with him, and then obviously when he got put down the first time, he wasn't able to get up and move them because your equilibrium was gone and you have to stand there, he's pressuring you, and he got nailed again.
Dar, I've talked so many times about power. We've talked about power, we've talked about quick reflexes on so many occasions here with you and on the amateur scene. This guy had that power, he had those reflexes, and you can't buy power. You either have it or you haven't. Poonsawat had it.
He certainly did, and he is the world champion. We're going to take a break. We'll have more chat and more analysis and reflections indeed on Bernard Dunne's defeat here at the O2. Stay with us after the break. What a night it was. 6 months ago, almost to the day, Bernard Dunne silenced all the doubters when twice he picked himself off the floor to become champion of the world.
Unbelievable! Bernard Dunne is the champion of the world!
Now comes the second test in the shape of #1 challenger Poonsawat Krantindaenggym from Thailand. 39 fights, 38 wins, 27 KOs. There isn't even the blemish of a knockdown on his record. This is the real deal. Bernard Dunne takes on Poonsawat Krantindaenggym for the WBA Super